because today we are going to talk about energy, clean energy, more of it, utilities, power, environmental justice. We have it all going on today, so we're glad you're in the room. So tomorrow is also Bob's birthday. Bob Marley, 1945, who knew? And in celebration of Black History Month, we are also kicking off with Bob, because we really want to make sure that February is about Black history, but it isn't just for February, as we like to say. So again, we're glad you're here. And I always like to get started introducing my team, the Power Crew. So say hello to the ambassador of Buzz. We have Stair Calhoun behind the controls. We have the show wizard, Robin Zeff Warner of Postcards. We also have the show maker and shaker. We have Krysta Jones, Vote, Lead, Impact, and show designer, Dennis Orsinger of Virginia Grassroots Coalition. Welcome, Dennis. And I'm Catherine White, mastermind and troublemaker, and that's about all you need to know about that. So a few announcements before we get started. We have to do some housekeeping. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll put that in the chat, because we have all this great content, and we want to make sure that you get it. And what else is there to do during a pandemic? All right. And also like our videos if you can. And I also love to do a shout out to our early backers. If they're in the room, they may have a pink screen up behind them, because they're backing our show. And we always love that early support that lets us do this great content for everybody. So yeah, let's get with it. Oh, one more thing. And if you want to stick around at the end of the show, we love to do an after chat. So we hope you'll remain in the room and kind of hang out for a little bit. So today it is all about cleaning up Virginia and moving from outrage to action. We really want to highlight important policy and consideration. And we have some big announcements about that policy with the delegates here, but I'm not going to give away that surprise about some of that. So I'll let them do that. But it really is about how Dominion Utilities hold power over the people. And that's why we're talking about environmental justice with our guests. But I want to make sure we get to Abigail Spanberger, the Congresswoman, who hopefully is in the room. I know her time is short, so I'd like to make sure. Abigail, are you here with us? There you are. How are you, friend? Congresswoman, uh-oh, we're a little frozen. Is she there? Or maybe that's...
She froze.
Or, yeah, give her a second. But frozen or not, she looks great. I know that she's doing a good job up there in Congress, so maybe she can reload her screen. And let me just just pay attention to me. I'm going to say a few more things while she gets her screen settled. So after Abigail, we're going to be thrilled to announce having the two delegates with us, Jay Jones and Jeffrey Bourne, on clean energy updates. Focusing on electric utilities, and also trying to really put a spotlight on some of what is holding down passage of some of our bills. And then we will be very much delighted with our own Krysta Jones of Vote, Lead, Impact, talking about Black history, and talking about the family around that. So we'll be excited to hear from her. And then we have two great guests in the room. Some of you may know, Dana Wiggins is here, the director of the Center of Community Outreach and Affordable Clean Energy at the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and Kendall Crawford. Kendall, you're looking good. Thank you for being here. She's the Interfaith Director for Interfaith, Power, and Light. And she's bringing the light today into the room. And also, how we're never going to forget, Laura Butchwald is here. Yay, Laura's here. Hi, Laura. Candidate in Senate 38. I hope she's going to bring all her information to us so we can support Laura. All right, so to get things kicked off, if Abigail's ready to go, we'll go with her. Here, there she is. How are you, Abigail? Sorry, Congresswoman.
No, please, Abigail is perfectly fine. Sorry for a little bit of the challenge. I had some internet issues, so I've switched to my phone. But thank you so much for having me join you today. So I'm pleased to be with Network Nova for this discussion, and I'd love to just give a few updates about what's been happening on Capitol Hill this week. and then talk briefly about the issue at hand of environmental justice. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be here with you all and with so many of my fellow panelists. So I'm Abigail Spanberger. I represent Virginia's 7th Congressional District in Congress, and that encompasses 10 counties. I know many of you know them well. This week on Capitol Hill, it's been an interesting week and a challenging week. We've been focused predominantly on COVID relief. We are going through a reconciliation process, budget reconciliation process, in order to be able to move forward with a comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan focused at ensuring that people are getting the support that they need, our localities are getting the support they need, communities and schools can get additional federal support, and that we, the United States Congress, can ensure that the federal government has the supplies and the ability to really do a large-scale vaccination plan. One of the things that I'm very pleased about with the Biden administration is with the swearing in of the Biden administration, they have prioritized a large-scale vaccination plan. They have stated their willingness and their intention to use the Defense Production Act. And this is a piece of standing legislation that allows for the federal government to really levy the heft of the United States government and our domestic resources here to ensure the production of whatever items are necessary from a national security standpoint. Last year, I joined many of my colleagues in calling on the prior administration to utilize the DPA, but there was significant hesitancy to do so. Vaccines we've seen in Virginia already, we are on a good trajectory. Improving upon our rates. All of the members of the Virginia delegation, members of the House, members of the Senate had a call this week with the governor's office to get an update. I'm very pleased with the process there. And from a federal standpoint, I'm looking for the ability to support that. So that is that reconciliation process and the large relief package that we are moving on. One thing I have been advocating for, and I've spoken to the White House about this, is the potential of pulling out the vaccine dollars, voting on that as a standalone and moving with the larger package. I haven't been on Capitol Hill that long, but long enough to know that some of these large scale packages at times can take a bit of time. And certainly with vaccine support, if we could vote on it and get it out to states and localities and ensure that those resources are there immediately, I think that would be optimal. So I've been advocating for that. We'll see. But I recognize the significant value, and I am in supporting the larger scale package that we're also moving rather expeditiously on. This week, of course, we had some challenges related to the normalization of conspiracy theories, hate, white nationalism. We laid to rest and Officer Brian Sicknick, who was murdered during the insurrection, was taken from the Capitol to be laid to rest at Arlington Cemetery. And now we will see next week the beginning of the impeachment trial for the former president. There is much going on, but to speak to the issue at hand, the issue of environmental justice, which of course is inextricably tied with COVID and something that we've been talking about so frequently in the past year, because of course, communities that are most impacted by environmental justice issues, where asthma is prevalent because of pollutants, where health standards are challenged, water is not as clean. The underlying issues that can impact people's lives also impact their ability to fight this virus if and when they contract it. And so we've seen disproportionate sickness and deaths within minority communities, Black and Brown communities, and the overlap between issues of environmental justice and the devastation that we have seen because of this virus are so tied. In Congress, I serve on the Agriculture Committee, and I chair the Conservation and Forestry Subcommittee. And in that space, we're looking at some of the longer range planning and how can we address issues of climate change. And I'm proud to lead that committee. And I'm also proud to join with my colleagues. And this is where I give a shout out to my friend and neighbor, Congressman Donald McEachin, who has been an absolute leader on issues of environmental justice. And in fact, he led in the last Congress and will again the Environmental Justice for All Act, which I was proud to co-sponsor with him. This bill would establish environmental justice requirements, advisory bodies, and programs to address the disproportionate health and environmental impacts on low-income communities and communities of color. So I'm grateful for his leadership in Congress and certainly within the Commonwealth on these very, very important issues. My colleagues and I did join together calling on the EPA in particular to ensure that the EPA is monitoring air pollution throughout this pandemic so that we can see where air pollution has clearly exacerbated the impacts of the virus. Right. And there's so much more that we can be doing in the area of environmental justice. It is a focus of so many in Congress, and I am grateful to have the chance to really work in the conservation and climate change space with a lens of equity and justice as we're doing so. So thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to your questions.
Yes, we have a few questions in the chat. So especially with about the COVID issues and different issues where families are struggling, we have a question. Can you speak about extending and giving permanent emergency paid leave, which expired December 31st is one question. There's a lot of questions on also the HR1 people bill because people really want. If you can speak to some things that are up there to help working people and people getting back to work or people having to stay home. And then also about this, everybody was talking about the People's Bill and HR1 out here. So for around voting, really reforming democracy.
Excellent. So to get at the larger scope of what it is that we're putting together with this upcoming relief package, and it's being formulated a bit differently. So this package is going through the budget reconciliation process. And so we're sort of allocating the funding amounts that will be available for utilization. And then from there, pulling together the exact components of the package, which makes it a little bit different from the prior relief packages that we've done. We're also pursuing potential negotiations for a negotiated plan, but in the interest of efficiency and expediency and delivering relief to people, we are pursuing this reconciliation plan, which a major priority is recognizing that unemployment is set to run out in March. And so those are the additional federal benefits related to unemployment. So the intention and the goal, of course, is to ensure that another relief plan package is in place before that. In terms of delivering relief to people, it is through direct payments. It is through additional longer-term support to food nutrition programs. We've, of course, across the country seen record numbers of people who are utilizing food banks. In the last bill in December, we expanded SNAP benefits, right, which has been, on the ground from food pantries and banks, been an incredibly important aspect and priority for us. And then rental assistance to ensure that we are not, while people who are impacted, having lost their job, loss of wages, et cetera, we need to make sure that we're also avoiding a large-scale housing crisis and an issue of homelessness, of course. So those are the major components as they relate directly to impacting people. And then in addition to that, we're also looking at support to states and localities so that they can continue to make the modifications, address the shortfalls that some have seen. In Virginia, we're actually running a budget surplus, so we are not as negatively impacted from a budgetary standpoint as other states have been. But across our communities and the communities that I represent, school districts that are purchasing PPE and cleaning schools and extra laptops and iPads, these are expenses that they never anticipated having, in addition to the longer term. And then about
HR1, I'm going to just give you a few shout outs so you'll know what's going on. People love your red scarf. And they love the Red Scarf Day, number one. Two, they're excited to hear you on the radio tomorrow on the Gene Rossi show. And also the HR1, they really want you to sign that bill. We really feel like we need, because really the plan right now for Republicans is to run the map and do voter suppression, because that's the only way that they can really kind of stop people from exercising their rights. So people are really asking for that support. If you could speak to it maybe a minute or so left. And then also, I think that how speedy will this recovery come? I mean, because we know that people are hurting now. So how long will this take to actually get all this enacted? So I know that's a lot, but I know you're able to cover it.
Yeah, so to be quick about it. So in terms of how quickly we can actually deliver the relief, the goal, and again, I haven't been on Capitol Hill for very long. Sometimes Congress works exceedingly slow, sometimes incredibly fast. The goal is to ensure that we can move forward with this next relief package in time for or around the time that those current extended federal benefits for unemployment would run out, which would be the end of March. That's incredibly fast, but we're moving. I mean, for anyone who saw the Senate during their vote-a-rama that went all night, that's a process that made it so that now today the House will take another vote, then the committees of jurisdiction. I serve on the Agriculture Committee. We have jurisdiction over food security issues. We'll be doing markups all next week, going through that process. And then ideally we'll be moving forward from there. So, knock on wood, fingers crossed, it should be a fast issue. Right. In terms of campaign finance reform, ethics reform, I would also point those who are interested in large-scale voting rights protections to look at H.R. 4, which is a bill that we also passed last Congress. H.R. 4 is the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Act, yes. Recognizing that with the depletion of the Voting Rights Act, many states were able to pass state laws and make changes to voting parameters that, in fact, really hurt people's ability to get out and vote, and making sure that those voting right protections are back in place is an important element. Certainly, we saw in Virginia what happens when we make it not easier, but more accessible, right, and more forward. Even at the polls on election day, I spoke with one gentleman who is a truck driver, and he said, I'm a truck driver and my day off doesn't come very often. He wasn't going to be off on election day, and he was able to vote without an excuse, easy, straightforward, the Saturday before the election, and making it so that it's accessible for people who are able to vote to actually execute on that right is incredibly important. And so there's components of that in H.R. 4, the Voting Rights Act, and then H.R. 1 is far broader in terms of campaign finance reform, addressing the issue of dark money, which has polluted our system. And then I want to also draw your attention to one other bill, the Trust in Congress bill, which is a bill that I introduced. It's very, very bipartisan. We've got people across the spectrum from here to here. And this bill would require that any member of Congress, upon getting elected to Congress, their spouse, or their dependent children would have to put any stock holdings that they may have into a blind trust, because it's incredibly important just to even be able to rebuild the trust. The fact that people perceived or thought or assessed that members of Congress would be, making stock decisions based on their own financial interests, that's a perception that is not even appropriate, let alone a reality that I think is unthinkable. So this bill would make sure that the American people would know that when we're serving them, we are only serving them. So that is thank you for all your advocacy.
Yes, and I'm so excited to see you, and we're so grateful. I know you're just stepping away for a minute. We're gonna wrap this section up and send you back to get to work, because obviously you're a champion out here in Virginia, and we need you to go work for us on the floor. So thank you, Abigail. It's always great to see you, and we'll see you again. I hope you come back.
Thank you, Catherine. Thanks for having me.
And quickly, if Jeff is still here, Delegate Jeff Bourne, before you jump off, I know it's crossover and it's crazy. So Jeff, are you here? Hey,
thank you.
I'm just going to let you take it from here, because just everybody in the room, Delegate Jeffrey Bourne, welcome. Let's get to this utility in your bill. I know it's a crazy day for you.
Allow me just a few minutes to chat. And as you mentioned, it is crossover. we're at ease trying to fix a little bill. But isn't it great for those of us in Richmond to be represented by such wonderful Congresspeople like Abigail Spanberger and Donald McEachin, who are real champions, not only for the people that they represent, but the issues that they care about. And so I take my hat off to them and really feel good about. Um, uh,
Oh, Jeffrey, we can't hear you. Fix your mic there a second. Don't you love technology? Here you are.
can you,
I can
hear me
you
now?
It's all good. Thank you, Delegate.
Perfect. Little technical difficulty with the AirPods, but I was just singing the praises of Richmond's Congresspeople, Abigail Spanberger and Donald McEachin, who are champions for all of the issues that we care about here in Central Virginia. Just want to spend a few minutes talking about environmental justice and how important that is to me and the communities that I represent. When we think about environmental justice, first and foremost, we have to think about making sure that the environmental protections that we pass are applicable and enforced in the communities that have oftentimes been marginalized. And then we think about what issues are most important. And for the communities I represent, it really boils down to air quality because so many of our poor and impoverished communities struggle with air quality, and they are asthma clusters in the city of Richmond, and we're trying to do as much as we can. One of the most important pieces for me, environmental justice, is making sure that my neighbors, your neighbors, aren't spending an exorbitant amount of money on energy and the costs. And so the two bills that I have up this year, which fortunately just passed out of the House, are number one, basically a right to shop bill, and we're eliminating what they call the kill switch. So right now in Virginia, everybody can purchase renewable energies from anywhere unless the providing utility offers a renewable product. And as we know, both Dominion and Appalachian Power both offer renewable products. Well, my bill seeks to take us back to a time when you could get your renewable energy from whichever provider offered you the best solution for your needs. And so really it is just a right to shop. And I think one of the things that's encouraging is it passed last year with a reenactment clause. It passed out again this year. We made a tweak to the bill this year so that these energy providers are going to have to offer a discount for our neighbors who need a discount because they live in impoverished communities. Maybe they're not as blessed as I am or many of our other community members. So we think that's a great bill to give consumers the option to shop for the renewable energy product that works best for them. Second is our bill to eliminate the customer credit reinvestment offset. Right now in Virginia, the utilities can get paid instantaneously by getting a credit for investments in large-scale projects, rather than doing what most people do when they make investments in their retirements, which is get their profit, get their benefit over time. This one allows them to instantaneously get this, and quite simply, it prevents customer refunds because it eats up all the over earnings, which would then trigger a refund to our customers. And then more importantly, I think going forward, it prevents the SEC from lowering rates for the customers going forward. There's been a lot of talk about whether or not this allows our utilities to earn a profit, and that's simply not true. There's been a lot of talk about whether or not this would affect a big renewable project, the offshore wind down in Tidewater. That's not true. In fact, during a committee hearing, we heard directly from the State Corporation Commission that the Dominion would likely not from an accounting perspective, from the amount of their over earnings, be able to avail themselves of the CCRO for the wind project, because there wouldn't be enough over earnings. So they would likely have to recoup their costs and earn their profit on a rate adjustment clause. So we think it's good policy. We think it's good for consumers, and it's good for reducing energy burden.
Right. I'm just going to interrupt you 1 second, and just so you can fix, you're having some feedback from probably your earbuds sitting over there, and just Delegate Jones, let's bring him up, and we'll bring your partner in crime on the utility up for it. How are you? Great to see you.
Well, thank you, Catherine, and thank you to Network Nova for the invitation. I don't know how I follow Abigail Spanberger and Jeff Bourne, who, as I'm sure you guys know, is one of my closest friends in the world, and it's been an honor to work with him on these issues, especially over the last couple of years, because whoever thought that in the General Assembly in Virginia, we would even have an opportunity to get these bills out of the House, right? Just a few years ago, Dominion's chokehold on the legislature was so strong that these things wouldn't even get a hearing, and now we're getting bipartisan support. So again, thank you. I'm Jay Jones. I represent the 89th District in the Virginia House of Delegates, which is part of the city of Norfolk. Proudly been in there since 2017. I'm also a candidate for Attorney General in 2021. And I'm so happy to talk with you guys about environmental justice today, because that's a big part of our campaign for AG as well. Obviously, I'm no stranger to these fights. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. I've lost hair, weight, and probably time off my life fighting against Dominion Energy because they are the biggest and the baddest out there. And as I've said many, many times, they've run roughshod over our system for far too long. And when I say that, I mean that they have not been sort of held accountable by the legislature, which is one of our jobs. We are supposed to be stewards for the ratepayer, for the consumer, for our constituents, and we just really haven't done that. But the General Assembly and really in the House have started to do that over the last couple of years. I want to thank all of you for your support of my bill last year, the Fair Energy Bills Act, which made it farther than I think anybody could have ever thought to the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee, and it died by one vote, which would have given Dominion its first clean rate review in 30 years. This year, we've got House Bill 2200, which comes back doing a similar thing in a slightly different way, changing every instance of shall to may, removing that arbitrary $50 million earnings collar in there, and directing the SEC to have Dominion refund all of earnings. So these are things that we talk about in the General Assembly. But I think from a broader perspective, much like Jeff, the communities that I represent in Norfolk are hit hardest by environmental justice. And it's not an issue that has been something that has been sexy until the last couple of years, but this is something that we've been talking about for quite some time. I represent every single low-income housing community in the city of Norfolk, and these folks are literally now being shepherded out to make way for nicer, newer places to live. But we want to make sure that, one, we're doing that responsibly, and two, we are not making them climate refugees. That's something that we have to deal with in Norfolk because of the climate change, right? Because of rising seas, whatever you guys want to call it, tidal flooding, it's happening and we're ground zero. And so that has always been something that's at the forefront of my mind. And I know that as Attorney General, we'll continue to prioritize that by putting more resources into the group that has to defend and fight for these things. I tell folks that office is really reflective of the occupant's values, where you're deploying resources, where you're putting those attorneys, has everything to do with how you feel about particular issues and what you want to highlight and value. And for us, the environment and energy are a top priority and always have been and always will be. So I think I've probably gone over a little bit in terms of time. We are kind of moving back and forth between session, but I think Jeff and I, speak for him, are happy to answer any questions that you guys might have about what we're doing in the legislature and about what we're doing broadly in 2021.
I think we probably have some questions in the chat. And first, though, I'd like to give a shout out to Clean Virginia, who really helped us put together this segment. They're in the room, Kendall Kobervig, and also we also have Lizzie Hilton here that really did a great job. So thank you to Clean Virginia, and also Sharon Shetler of the Virginia Grassroots Coalition. And this is just to get you guys here and experts on the topic. So I heard your bills passed today.
Yes.
So good for you, right? And also you may want to stick around after your segment. We're going to have some questions and poll questions and prizes to win about Dominion Energy and some fun stuff like that.
No, they're Dominion Injury.
They're injury.
That's right.
The,
That's right.
yeah, outrage
That's
bullets,
right.
as we call it. So yes, is there, Krysta? Do you see any questions in the chat about your bills, about Dominion, about what we can do about getting this money hold out of what we?
Yeah. Robert Littman asked, should voters urge legislators to return any past campaign contributions they've been getting from Dominion?
Ooh.
Well, I'll say this, and I don't take money from those folks. I think we are at a point now where people are getting religion on that, and I think it's a good thing.
Yes.
And yes, the campaign contributions are problematic, but I think our fight has always got to be focused on policy. And I think that there are people who do take their money who still are good on our issues. And so I understand, right, the sort of trepidation when it comes to that. But I think what we have to really focus on is the Senate. The Senate is the problem. They have been the roadblock. They have been obstinate. And so, whether it's money or not, our advocacy has got to be aimed at those folks, because I feel quite confident that the House, we do our job, right, year in and year out. Bipartisan support. Jeff's bill got 60-something votes this morning. My bill got 60-something votes this morning. So we're there, but we've got to go get that other chamber on our side. And I think that we can do a lot together if we band as one, right? And a loud chorus of voices is really hard to overcome. And so I think we're moving in that direction.
Do you see anything else? I see one about really this campaign finance policy that was killed in the House. I think people out here in the grassroots, we fought long and hard to give the majority to get it. And then I think our disappointment is a little bit of people living up to their values. And so how do we feel about this? And what do we do about this? What's your view?
Jeff, you want that?
Yeah.
He's on. Jeff, you're on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Sorry, you think I know better, have as many Zooms as I'm on every day. Campaign finance is one of those issues that we have to address. I think even if you remove should a person take contributions from a regulated monopoly, there are a lot of issues surrounding our campaign finance laws that need to be reformed. Because this was a short session, because this was a virtual session, I didn't get a chance to dig into and follow other issues outside of the committees that I serve on and the bills that I'm carrying, just because everything is so truncated and so condensed. And so, obviously, this is an issue that we've got to tackle. And my hope and commitment is to work with folks who really are serious about campaign finance reform. I think we passed a piece of it, which is banning the personal use of campaign funds. I guess obviously there's an exception for childcare, but it's a start. And again, I think to Delegate Jones's point, some of the resistance is in the other chamber, and so hopefully we can make some movement, make some progress, because campaign finance is critical to making sure that people are having the right debate and right opportunity to run and serve, because it's a great thing to do.
Right. We like to see the bills at least come out on the floor. It was nice to hide behind the Republicans, but we're like, there's no hiding anymore. Let's let the people hear it, see it, and have a vote on it. So, Jay, if you want to have a few minutes, like just really 30 seconds, because Krysta Jones is going to kick it off.
Yep.
After we do the game, she's going to do some stuff about Black history that's going to be awesome. So
okay. So look, I'm just going to close with this, because I think Jeff is right, and I think we're overdue for campaign finance overhaul, and we'll vote for it right when it gets to the floor. I just want to say thank you guys for giving me a few minutes to join you. It's been my pleasure. Hopefully I can come back. If you guys like what you hear, if you like what you see, if you're thinking about taking Virginia in a new direction in the AG's office, which I hope you all are, I'd urge you to go to our website, jayjones.com. Just my name, JAYJONES. I think my aide Khaled is going to drop it in the chat too. This is a historic opportunity to lift up the voices who have traditionally been marginalized, to put faces and voices at the table that I think we're long overdue for. And I hope I can get y'all support, but I will be back, and please continue to bug the Senate about our bills as it relates to Dominion. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to turn off my thing. You do have to go vote. So we'll hang on as long as we can. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to, Krysta, stay with me here, and we're going to talk for a second. Robin, I know we're time. I'm saying people stay in the room with us. We have a great show. We may go a little over today, Krysta, do you want to wait, Robin, to do the Dominion poll now or after Krysta?
Oh, I guess you should do that now. Sorry. Yeah, you should go ahead and do that now.
Let's go. Let's do a poll to see how smart our audience is and win some prizes. Let's go. Come on, Van.
All right, so now that you've heard about Dominion from a lawmaker's lens, let's have some fun and test your knowledge about Dominion's grip on Virginia. The Climate and Clean Energy Working Group of the Virginia Grassroots Coalition with Clean Virginia have come up with some questions. And the first person to post the correct answer in the chat gets a spiffy mug. So let me bring Sharon.
Can Vanna talk about the mug?
Yes, Vanna, I'm introducing you now, Sharon Shetler from the Climate and Clean Energy Working Group. She has the mugs that you'll be winning. So Sharon, please show your fancy mug. And Sharon,
there we go.
And Sharon's also
welcome.
She's going to be our question diva. And Kendall from Clean Virginia is going to track our winners in there.
Yeah, you put the question up so long, it's going to be hard.
All right, here we go. Out of the 52 largest utilities in the country, Dominion ranks number what in energy efficiency? Lot of people. Who was the first one, Kendall?
Our winner is Lisa Howard.
Because the correct number is 50. Sharon, you want to explain?
Yep, you have to work pretty hard to be this low, but according to the American Council for Energy Efficiency Economy in 2020, Dominion ranked 50 out of 52 of the largest utilities nationally. The scorecard takes into account the energy efficiency performance as well as the energy efficiency offerings by the utility. So,
right. All right,
there's your answer.
Here we go. Gripper question number 2 is, Virginians pay the blank highest electric utility bills in the country? 40th, 30th, 20th, or 6th? All right, here we go. And the correct answer is 6th. Sharon, you want to explain the answer?
I sure do. There are no alternative facts here. We're not making this up. These statistics come directly from the U.S. Energy Information Administration.
All right. Gripper question number 3. Which Virginia legislator has received over $460,000 in contributions from Dominion, the largest single recipient of Dominion largest? All right, here we go. And the answer is Sasla. But there's more, Sharon.
Well, let's hear it for the Virginia Public Access Project, which allows all of us to track who is getting donations. I encourage you to track the donations, and then I encourage you to track the votes, and I encourage you to really focus on that Senate Commerce and Labor Committee, which is where all these utility bills are headed for next.
All right, I'm sorry, Kendall, I didn't ask you who won the last question and who won this question. I apologize.
So the first person to answer both of the last 2 questions was Natalie Pien.
All right, Natalie, rock on. All right.
Of course you did.
The 4th and final question is, for blank percentage of Virginia households, the amount of income they spend on electricity costs is considered unaffordable by federal standards. Is it 10%, 25, 75, or 90%? And the correct answer is 75. All right, who was the first one? Oh, wait, Sharon, explain.
Okay, the federal government classifies households that pay more than 6% of their monthly utility bill as energy burdened. And pre-COVID, 75% of all Virginia households fell in that category.
So Kendall, who's our winner there?
Yes, our winner was Meredith Haynes.
All right. Well, and once again, Sharon, please show them the wonderful mug. And
I want to thank all the contestants today for playing the game of Dominion Dominance, and you will get this handcrafted, lovely mug with the Virginia Grassroots Coalition logo, brought to you by the Climate and Clean Energy Working Group. It's tastefully decorated, and it reminds us that clean energy for the new Dominion is our goal.
Yes, I have to thank both of you and thank you for all your work putting this session together with us. It's been awesome partnering with you guys. And Natalie, if you have too many mugs, just like let us know. I'm sure for clean energy you do. I'm just teasing you. And make sure you put your address, send it to Kendall or Sharon. How do you want the addresses sent, Robin? Private message to direct message?
Kendall's taking care of it, so private message to Kendall.
All right. Let's, Krysta Jones, why don't you take over the next session with your wonderful presentation and then go right into our next guest.
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine. I want everyone to think for a moment about what you've learned in past Black History Months. Do you remember different years and facts and faces? Do you remember much at all? And how much is it integrated in our daily lives and education? So this month of 2021, this year, the theme for Black History Month is the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. And I really think this is a great topic because I know, at least for me, I think I unconsciously try to find out more about a person through their family, for better or for worse. There perhaps is, this quote by Will Hagen really stood out to me. There perhaps is no other family unit in America that has been analyzed, poked, and studied as much as the Black family. Its habits, customs, rituals, and odyssey have been tabulated, collated, and stored for generations. The hyper-curiosity is rooted in slavery and the gouging, sweeping damage it wreaked upon a race of people. After emancipation, chroniclers with notebooks traveled far and wide to interview former slaves. So I also think about the fact that the strong influence of the media sometimes depicts Black families as one-sided, poor single mothers, incarcerated fathers. And while the statistics obviously say this is somewhat true, it's not the whole story. I spent a lot of 2020 researching my own family history through both of these sites. And I know a lot of people are scared about what they might find, but I looked at this as a new adventure and have had a chance to learn more than I expected and explore more of what I already knew. It was especially troubling, I can tell you, to see the slave records, the murders, which I knew were a function of poverty and a long family history of those issues, and also the rape that most likely my foremothers were subjected to by their slave masters. But as I start to research people who are as close as my fourth cousins, and to see that so many of them are 99 to 100% Caucasian, it reminds me of how close we really are as a human race, no matter how we got to that circumstance. And as we know, slavery truly annihilated the Black family, although for so long that has not been what we've been taught. We have to undo the years of brainwashing and white supremacy that we have learned. And this picture is grainy, but it was especially troubling for me because it's obviously, well, if you can see on the left, it's a lynching. And it looks like the young girl is almost excited. And to the left, it's harder to see. On the far left, there's a woman kind of looking on like she's interested in the lynching. And then the man is sitting there with his arms crossed. So this is really, it seems like a normal sight for them. And it almost seems like it's actually a family affair. In the last 12 months or so, you all have probably had, no doubt, a crash course on the history of the Black Greek organizations and the Black sororities, particularly because of Madam VP. I just wanted to really elucidate the fact that the Black sorority movement and what you're hearing now, just with, you see all the colors, you see the signs, you see the calls, but a lot of times you don't see the service and the sisterhood. And I just wanted to highlight some of the African-American women who are proud members of Black sororities. Nikki Giovanni is a Delta, which is in the red and white, and she's doing the Delta sign. I'm not sure if you can tell, that's Congresswoman Donna Edwards, second to left, and Anita Hill, the next over onto her left, who are both members of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, my sorority, and then of course, Madam VP with her Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority sisters in pink and green. So when we think about how we can celebrate Black history all year round, in addition to the facts, the music, and the food, I encourage you to envision a more positive and common picture of the Black family, just because, like I was saying, I really think whether we do it consciously or not, we connect a lot to people's families and we think about them through the family. So if you have a negative lens for that, that's going to affect how you view the whole, how you view African Americans. And in some ways, I think it's really important that we think about why this particular picture was so important. If you think about the history of the Black family, you'll see why this picture is so important, as well as this picture. So thank you all for listening. Just wanted to give a notice that the National Coalition of 100 Black Women we're holding our virtual silent auction this week, which is an organization of sisters, Black women who are dedicated to advocacy. And I'll put the link in the chat. And we're gonna go over to, now we're gonna introduce Miss Dana Wiggins and Kendall Crawford. Dana is with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and Kendall is with the Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. We're going to talk a little more about environmental justice from the advocacy standpoint. So for Dana and Kendall, welcome. And just tell us a little bit more about how you define environmental justice. I'll have you go first, Kendall.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me this afternoon. So in terms of my definition of environmental justice, it's all about the distribution of benefits and burdens. So benefits, think about stuff like bike lanes, parks, trees. Burdens, think about, landfills, different polluting factories, air pollution from highways. So if you just think about the distribution of the burdens and the benefits, then that kind of gets you close to what we're talking about when we're thinking about environmental justice. And of course, when you say justice, you want a fair distribution of those burdens and benefits.
That's a great point. I think about a year ago, I was driving through, I think it was Georgetown, and I just, it was like one of the residential neighborhoods in that area of DC. And just to go down the streets that were tree lined, it was quiet in the morning, it was fresh air. That had such an immediate impact on my psyche within like a minute. It just really elucidates that issue of our environment, how important that is for mental health. Dana, talk to us about your definition of environmental justice.
Well, very similar to Kendall. It really is about sort of the distribution of both the burdens that we bear, but also all the benefits that are around us and that are paid for with all of our tax dollars or that are paid for with ratepayer dollars. I mean, the way I look at it more from a consumer lens, but it all is very similar. I mean, I think our definitions are probably exactly the same. And I think, for environmental justice, it permeates a lot more things than just if there's a park or not in an area. It is a much broader issue. It comes down to energy burden. It comes down to, like Kendall said, the certain kinds of things that are in our environment that can either be benefits like a park or a landfill, or, there's issues around, gold mining right now or uranium mining, which is an issue that we've had in the past. So there's, things around that and accessibility. So there are, when equity is not at the center of a lot of decisions, there tends to be a lot of imbalance in how things are distributed, to Kendall's point.
So Dana, can you just continue along that vein? When we think about poverty, why is it so important to look at environmental justice and poverty together?
Well, often the communities that are sort of on the receiving end of more of the burdens than they are on the receiving end of the benefits, even though we're all putting in, we're all putting into the system in one way or another. But those communities that receive more of the burdens tend to be lower income communities or tend to be traditionally African American communities or minority communities. And so, you have to sort of those areas that, where an area that gets paved first, typically not the lowest income area of a city or a town. The area that gets a new park might not be one of those communities, right? So you're sort of looking at, or where somebody decided to, they didn't want the landfill in their backyard. They're like, oh, that community over there, where the people are working all the time, and they might not have an ability to come to a board of supervisors meeting or what have you. So, I mean, there are with lower income people who are often spending a lot more time, nose to the grind, working, trying to cobble together income for their families. A lot of times they are not part of the decision-making process. And so as these decisions of any kind, but particularly when we're talking about environmental impact and also on burden decisions around things that can affect them, their inability or the lack of ability to participate in the decision making often means that they are then the recipient. If you're not at the table, you get, you've been voluntold. They have been voluntold on so many parts of the burden side of this equation around the environment. And so trying to figure out how do you fix those things. I think Delegate Jones brought up the issue of the public housing projects in Norfolk. They're being forcefully moved out of those projects. And there's a lot of, I think, misconceptions around public housing projects. But I think for the people that live in those communities, they are a community. And so being forced to leave those communities, they have built up, support systems amongst one another. They take care of each other's children. One person might have to run to the store and one other person's watching all the kids. I mean, they have these support networks that they have developed, lifetime friendships, or even just circumstance friendships and other support. They have developed a network of community and family and support. And when other people who aren't part of that community make the decision that, we should just get rid of it, what happens then? I mean, where do they go? What are the costs that they're going to be bearing when they move? There aren't enough Section 8 vouchers. And so even though, yes, that area of Norfolk is probably going to be the first to flood whenever there's a big storm, and there's lots of issues with the actual place that they are, how they got to that place is often because it was the place that was flooding and nobody else was, they were, in many ways, they're communities, minority communities that were there prior to the public housing project being there. They were kind of marginalized and put into those areas because other communities, white communities didn't want to live in those areas that already flooded. Some of those were always issues. So it's not that climate change is only an issue. It's exacerbating more issues that have already existed, and inequities that were already there.
Absolutely. So Kendall, what can advocates do? What are the next steps on this issue?
So just to kind of continue the thread of what Dana was talking about, I always think, it would be a shame just to recreate the same old exploitation and injustices in the new clean energy economy of the future. So, those decisions are being made right now. So I know there's many other issue areas happening, but I just want to say that because this is the moment now, as we're really thinking about reshaping our environmental policies, shaping for the first time our climate policy. So what can advocates do? You all are already advocates. You know what you can do. You know who we have to bug. We have to keep worrying our decision makers, keep worrying your senators, your delegates. We just heard about a big slate of energy burden legislation. I have several bills. I won't go into all of them, but it's really important that we keep supporting them, especially through this General Assembly session. And organizations like Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, Virginia Poverty Law Center, Sierra Club Queen Virginia, we all have, I'm sure many of you are already on and getting blasted with our email action alerts, but those are really important that you're looking and you don't get tired and you keep shouting to your legislators, writing your letters to the editor about these bills, because it's very, very important that we're taking advantage of this moment to make sure that we are sculpting and being a part of and being represented in these processes to really shape the climate future that we want to see.
Well, and also on that point, Kendall, I think it also is important to really hold legislators' feet to the fire. We have 5 bills that are making their way over from the House that have bipartisan support. They have support of a lot of, if you explained any one of these bills to people in the general public, a person on the street, they are all absolutely reasonable. They are not designed to harm the utility companies. They are designed to make the process by which we arrive at decisions around our utility rate, our utility, the way they pass along costs and the rates that they're allowed to charge. It's just creating a fair process. I think the important part is that these are bills that are designed to really create a fair process, and I think that they are going to face a very steep hill to climb as they arrive at the shores of the Senate. And so I think it's obviously, on the House side, there is an election happening in the fall, and there is that sort of impetus for people to sort of really look at how things can broadly be beneficial to everyone. I think on the Senate side, there isn't that pressure, but I do think there is an important needs for people, if you are in districts of senators, particularly ones on commerce and labor, it's now is the time to be saying, these are common sense things. Every year the utilities, investor-owned utilities often are pushing for changes in the same year as a rate case. They're pushing for even small or large changes that significantly create even more of an imbalance than we already had in our electric utility system. And so all of these bills, whether it's one bill or all of the bills, they are all designed in some way, shape, or form to correct. They don't completely correct it. If Delegate Jones had been and Delegate Ware had been successful last year, there would have been a huge leap in terms of really getting to some of the underlying huge costs that we are still paying for, even if they're paid off items. But without that, all these bills are, some small, some large, that are just ways of kind of tilting back towards balance. They do not decide an outcome, they decide a fair process. And I think that's different, where the utilities have traditionally, since re-regulation, been pushing for changes that really give them a desired outcome. They want to make sure that they get the maximum amount of profit. Now they are allowed to overcharge customers, which in the system that we have just shouldn't be allowed at all. They get, a fair rate of return, and they have an earnings band that allows them wiggle room, so they can even earn above that. And they still want to be able to not only charge extra above that, but they also get to keep portions of that money and pocket it. They don't have to return it to customers. And right now, there is very little that gets returned to customers at all, if anything. And so this is the, these are the things that this, and as well as other environmental justice bills. I mean, there are some actual sort of specifically EJ bills that are, going through the process that, in some cases have been watered down, in some cases are really missed the mark, in some case, that to really get at some of the issues. And we don't want to kick the can down the road. We want to make sure that there's some action that happens now.
Absolutely. Well, that is a great way a note to end this conversation on. Thank you so much, Dana and Kendall, for really reminding us of how this is all very systemic and how we really, like you said, need to tip the balance just so everything is fair and equal. So let's turn it back over to Catherine and Lori Buchwald.
Yeah, I want to thank Kendall, and I love that you're bringing your faith and spirit into this fight, and I really like that you're organizing those communities. And so thank you so much, Dana, for all the work you're doing at the Virginia Poverty Law Center. And I'll hand it over to my friend, Robin, because excitement!
It's lots of excitement. We have a special election in Virginia on March 23rd, and we're so excited to have the candidate with us today, Lori Buchwald. She's running for Senate in the 38th District due to the untimely passing of Republican Ben Chafin on New Year's Day from COVID-19. Though this district is in the red belt, special election like this is all about turnout. So Lori, tell us about your campaign and what we can do to help. And we're going to put some links in the chat. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
I'm with you. First of all, I am so thrilled to be a part of this call today. You know, I'm a environmental hippie for the last, 50 years, 40 years. And it's so great to hear all the comments and all the passion about this issue. So this is an issue near and dear to my heart. And here in Southwest Virginia, we focus a lot on natural resources. You know, we have the Appalachian Trail, we have amazing rivers, we have state parks, and I have been instrumental in developing a bikeway walkway, and I'm on the New River Watershed Roundtable. So hearing all these environmental justice things has got my head spinning and things that I need to incorporate. But and of course, as a motorcyclist, riding the roads of Southwest Virginia is a favorite passion as well. So I just have to take a quick minute. I know I have a minute to thank everyone who's writing postcards. It is overwhelming to me in the best possible way to know that so many people are out there who are supporting my campaign and therefore the people of Southwest Virginia. For too long, electeds down here are focused on two major issues. You know what they are. And while I will address those, I want to talk about the environment. I want to talk about infrastructure, access to healthcare. I'm a nurse practitioner, have been in healthcare for 35 years. Every day since COVID and before, but especially I tell my patients to get outside, get some fresh air. This is one of the best ways to manage the stress of COVID, which I call the overarching impact. It has affected every single person that I see. And my patients, while I work in Blacksburg and Radford, come from all over the 38 and Southwest Virginia. And access to healthcare, or lack of access to contraception, lack of access to vaccines, healthcare treatment is a huge issue, but it's infrastructure. It's infrastructure for schools. There are kids relying on virtual schooling that have inadequate broadband in my area. So there's just so much to focus on. I want to fight to correct some of the injustices that have been revealed because of this pandemic. So thanks everybody for the postcards. It's just amazing. It inspires me to keep working harder.
So how else can we help you in addition to postcards? Because I know we've done over 20,000 and we've almost reached your complete maximum of postcards. But what else can we do?
Well, obviously, I asked you all to put some links in the chat. We are starting our regular meetings today to help get the word out. I keep saying we have a twin mission. Obviously, fundraising is always really critical, but right along with that is getting out the vote. So we are focusing strongly on voting. Today is the first day of voting in the special, and I will be voting as soon as I get off the phone. I already had somebody text me that they voted, so I'm very excited about that. So what I'm asking people to do anywhere in the Commonwealth, share my message. My website, I had somebody make an amazing website through a contribution. Share my message and help share that message with anybody they know in my neck of the woods. We just need to let everybody know this is a special. How we will win this day is by getting people out to vote. So that's number one. My campaign would want me to tell you that fundraising is number one. So I'm going to put them as equal.
And if you wrote postcards for Lori, get them in the mail because early voting starts today. And we want to get people out there to vote. Well, thank you so much, Lori. We are there for you. And with that, I'm Catherine. I'm going to bring you on to close the show. And also,
magically, I appeared. Hi, Lori.
Hi. How are you?
Oh, great. We're so excited that you'll be down there kicking it around. In that race, and we need more reform in the Senate, as we said today, and just so glad to have you and be able to support you, have you here today with us. So I know that thank you for everybody hanging in. It was a great show. When we have somebody come in from Congress, it's always a little crazier because of their schedule, and also the delegates with crossover today. We all have to check in to see what bills made it. And then again, we learned today for some calls to action is really always about holding these people. It's all about accountability, isn't it? I mean, that's it. It doesn't seem like enough. We did a lot of work flipping Virginia blue, and then now we have a lot of work making our own Democratic lawmakers accountable and tell them, vote on this stuff that matters to us. That's why we elected you, right? So
I think
thank you to clean. Yes, sorry, what, Robin?
Well, we can't forget the Badass Boutique, but you do your thank yous first.
Well, let me do thank yous, and then then we can do some shopping, because it was about shopping. Jeff said, Delegate Bourne said about shop, and all I thought about was the boutique when he was talking. I'm like, of course we like to shop utilities, shop in the boutique. But I'm just going to do my quick thanks and then hand it off to Stair for the boutique. Thank you to Clean Energy. You guys are awesome. Thank you to our Virginia Grassroots Coalition Working Group, Sharon Shetler, for bringing the energy into the room, the literal energy into the room, and then also for our backers always that support us. And Stair, let's shop for a second, and then if you want to stay for the after chat, we're going to hang out. And you need postcards, don't we? Everybody needs postcards. So.
We need postcards, and it's already spring.
Okay, here I am, unmuted.
Shop, girl, let's shop.
Okay, let's shop. Okay, so spring has come to the Badass Boutique. We wanted to highlight that one of our old postcards. Let's grow Virginia bluer. So that's, you can get that. So let's shop. So we've got the postcard, as I said, but we were also, for Valentine's Day, have a new bracelet with 6 different designs that you can choose your favorite design and put them on there. We also have the new mask, hand-painted mask. And then, of course, please take a visit over to our postcards and panties. Next slide, which shows all the different postcards you can write for Lori, and a couple of different buttons. So be well, everyone, and let's shop.
I love it. I love the postcards and panties. Who else has that section on their website but Badass Boutique people? So with that, yeah, let's close out with some credits. And next week, one teaser is that next week we'll have Delegate Dan Helmer here, and we will have Chelsea Parsons, who is from the Center of American Progress. And we will also have, these are just some top guests, as we say. We also have Brenda Moss. What a badass on gun violence and prevention. So next week will be a lot about love for Valentine's Day, a lot about preventing gun violence. And so we hope you join us next week. And let's do the roll the credits and stay in action. And let's jam. Let's go.